just to welcome everybody here, this is Roswell Mayor Del Journey. Please welcome him.
Well, thank you, Guy, and I want to say welcome to everybody. I am Del Journey, and I'm the proud mayor of the city of Roswell. And I just want to take a minute and thank you for joining us during the UFO Festival. It's a high-octane, high-energy, high level of enthusiasm that we put out for each of you, and then we have an opportunity to sit like we are now and to listen and to just take information in. I've been to several talks on ufology, and the perspectives that each presenter takes puts their own twist on it. And it gives a different level of consciousness as to whether or not this is real or not. But when I talked to Guy and he said that his approach is from a Christian basis, being a believer myself, I thought, that's interesting. So I told him that I would certainly like to come and to listen to his presentation today, and he said, why don't I take a moment and introduce him? So it's my privilege and it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Guy Malone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. So welcome back to many of you, and welcome to those of you who are just joining us for the first time at the Roswell Public Library today. I'm Guy Malone, and I want to thank you for your interest in the second half of our War of the Worlds, the Invisible Battle lecture series. For those that are not here, you're watching on DVD or online, just as you can all surmise just from traveling around, this is our everyday life. If you live here in Roswell, this is what our visitors are seeing while they're here in Roswell. And as you can all hear surmise just from traveling around Roswell this weekend, no small amount of money is made from in Roswell off the merchandising of this alien phenomena. To be the home of the Roswell crash controversy, which I spoke on earlier today, a lot of you were here, thank you for coming back. It's considered a blessing by many people to have something unique like this to bring in people from all over the world to spend their money here, of course. So whether they're really interested in learning more about the incident or they just want some crazy pictures for their Facebook, no doubt people do come here in droves on a daily basis just because of the crash and the UFO museum and the tourism industry that's sprung up around the topic here. I've lived in Roswell as a missionary for 11 years now, offering a biblical perspective on the whole phenomena and publicly putting forth the idea, as many, many Christian authors are today, that maybe this alien phenomena is not such a good thing. Maybe it does seem, in fact, to many that it represents what can loosely be called demonic activity, and even the professional non-Christian researchers do seem to agree overall that the interaction with so-called aliens brings an incredible amount of torment into an individual's life. But I'd say that most average people who actually live here, in fact, they really don't have a strong opinion on what did or did not happen here in 1947, nor do they have a strong belief system on whether aliens even exist or not, and especially not a strong opinion on whether you could call them good or bad. So I've additionally found that most people here don't want to know to a certain degree, and because of what I'd say has become a prevailing attitude in Roswell among locals is, well, it makes us money, therefore it is good. The potholes get fixed, the kids have air conditioning in the school, we even have airfare offered out of Roswell now, and that's great. We have this alien-related tourism industry to thank for all that. But that's kind of interesting in light of what the Bible says about the love of money as well. It's very similar to the silversmith trade in chapter 19 of the book of Acts, in fact. In this case, I've seen that the love of money is definitely, to the Roswell Christian community, at minimum, it's the root of a willful lack of discernment, and which is where we come in here. Both myself and our next speaker, Joe Jordan, we've been speaking on this topic at events we've organized during the UFO Festival since 2003. And I want to say to those of you who are familiar with my work, whether you're here in the room or not, I feel really, really good about this lecture today. It's a lot of new material compared to what you've seen from me in the past. And I've had this feeling since I first did a version of this talk in last September that after a decade of being here, it seems as if I've finally got this right. What I mean is that I'm finally speaking exactly what God once said on this topic, at least through me anyway. And I've already been blessed to see the impact this talk has had on 3 audiences prior to today outside of Roswell. So with that in mind, I want you to know right up front that there's not the usual copyright issues on this DVD. You are welcome to copy it and give hundreds of them away. If you want to, you can upload it to the internet all you want. You can Photoshop little horns on my head. I don't care. I will just consider it a favor if you let me recruit you into getting this message out to the entire world. So with that said, the overall theme I'm going to be discussing is how the modern-day documented reports of UFOs and aliens actually do not suggest to many educated researchers that this phenomena that have been recorded for the last 50, 60 years at least is in fact extraterrestrial in origin, i.e. genuine biological intelligent life forms from other planets abducting, studying, or communicating with humans. But rather, the documentation I'm going to be sharing is intended to allow you to make up your own mind about the phenomena, and perhaps you'll agree that what's really going on is better described as spiritual in nature, and more to the point, better described as the deceptive spiritual entities warned about in the Bible. Here's an overview, or an outline, of what I'll be covering today. Just some recent polls, secular or non-Christian researchers' findings about the phenomena, some Christian researchers' findings. There we go. ET's messages, and what the Bible says about life on other planets. As an introduction, my work began in this field while I was still living in Nashville, Tennessee, right after the mass suicide of a group known as Heaven's Gate in 1997. That image is from their website. At the bottom it reads, "The keys to Heaven's Gate are here again in Tai and Do, the UFO 2, it says. And they, the alleged keys, as they were in Jesus and his Father 2,000 years ago." This quote from the New York Times Company says the materials the group published claimed in the early 1970s 2 members of the Kingdom of Heaven, or what some might call 2 aliens from space, incarnated into 2 unsuspecting humans in Houston. They consciously recognized that they were sent from space to do a task that had something to do with the Bible. The idea that people would kill themselves based on something aliens told their group's leader about the Bible was quite shocking to me. And it set me on a journey of finding out how prevalent philosophies like this have been becoming in the last decade. And what I've since found in recent years is that there is indeed much more credible documentation from very believable sources on this phenomena of alleged aliens communicating with humans. Before getting to that, from modern polls, Larry King ran a couple of programs about a UFO sighting in Stevensville, Texas, a couple years back. On his website, they posted a poll simply asking, "Do you believe in extraterrestrial life?" It got an amazingly high number of affirmative answers. 86% said yes, and that's the highest number I've ever seen on any similar poll from a major media source. 2008 Scripps UFO poll tells us that 56% of Americans overall believe it either very likely or somewhat likely that intelligent life exists on other planets. Sci-Fi Channel's Roper poll says 66% believe in ET life. A whopping 74% of the 18 to 24-year-olds in that survey, on the left, believed intelligent life elsewhere is likely. And all of these numbers are way higher than polls from the 40s and 50s through the 90s have ever reported. So with a result like 18 to 24-year-olds, 3/4 weighing in, you can imagine where that number is going to be in 20 more years. Almost up to half, a third of half, believe aliens have visited the Earth. Around 10% have seen a UFO. And on the right side bottom, 2% believe they've had an encounter with extraterrestrial life. Combining those polls into one gives you better than 3 out of 5 believe in life on other planets, and 1 in 10 have seen a UFO. And there's other polls I could show you, Roper, USA Today, CNN, that put that last number of people who believe they've had an abduction or a contact scenario possibly at 2 to 3%, or consistently at 2 to 3% in scientific credible source polling. There's a good book that I'll be quoting later. The lead scientist, J. Allen Hynek, he was on the Air Force's Project Blue Book. He gave an offhand answer to a journalist's question. He guessed off the top of his head that the number of contactees in America was 1 in 40, or 2.5%. And that's way before the more recent polls made that same claim. But 2 to 3%, 1 in 40 is 2.5%. He nailed it decades ago. This last graph is based on the National UFO Reporting Center database. Shows how dramatically the numbers of people seeing and reporting UFOs has increased also just since 1990. So 8 or 12%, splitting the difference. Again, 1 out of 10 people have seen a UFO. About 1 in 40, maybe 1 in 50, have had an experience they identify as extraterrestrial. Something's definitely happening. Before getting into what the more prominent Christian views that are out there, let's see what the prominent non-Christian researchers and scientists have said about this phenomena over the years. I'll be sharing a few quotes from the very famous but now deceased Carl Sagan, and I want to point out that Dr. Sagan was not a debunker on the possibility of extraterrestrial life. According to Dr. Carl Sagan, the available evidence strongly suggests that the origins of life should occur given the initial conditions and 1 billion years of evolutionary time. So he was open to the idea. Now, many Christians in general, and many non-Christian professional scientists do not believe in the theory of evolution, but my point is simply showing that despite being friendly to the possibility of extraterrestrial life, when Carl Sagan extensively studied the details about the large numbers, modern reports of UFOs which he had access to, he called it pseudoscience. He did not find it rational to believe that aliens were visiting us with what he called casual impunity. And he also wrote, there we go, 1969 study by the National Academy of Sciences, while recognizing there are reports not easily explained, concluded that the least likely explanation of UFOs is the hypothesis of extraterrestrial visitations by intelligent beings. He continues, think of how many other explanations there might be. Time travelers, demons, tourists from another dimension, the souls of the dead. Each of these explanations has been seriously proffered, and he says least likely is really saying something. Another person I think you'll know of. One theory, which can no longer be taken very seriously, is that UFOs are interstellar spaceships. That's Arthur C. Clarke, one of the most famous sci-fi writers of all time. He wrote the book that led to the movie 2001. So I think it's fair to say he probably made quite a chunk of change writing about aliens visiting Earth as fictional, but he also honestly didn't think what we Earthlings are currently experiencing was actually aliens from outer space either. One more from someone you may not have heard of, that book 1 in 40. Non-Christian author Preston Dennett. It cannot be denied that there's a connection between UFO encounters and psychic phenomena. UFO abductees report being plagued with all sorts of paranormal manifestations following their UFO experience. Objects moving by themselves, ghostly footsteps, apparitions, doors opening and closing by themselves, precognitive dreams, telepathy, telekinesis, the list is endless. He says, many ufologists ignore this aspect of ufology in an attempt to draw the subject out of the occult. They refuse to use all the evidence presented to make a theory which explains all aspects of the reported phenomena. Instead, they choose those aspects that would prove their theory while ignoring the evidence that contradicts their theory. UFOs will never be explained until the psychic aspect of UFOs is also explained. Thank you.